Welcome back to Low Country Spotlight. Of course, it's the holiday season, and so often we hear about ways that we need to avoid the holiday doldrum, or sometimes people battle with bouts of depression and other mental issues because maybe they've lost a loved one throughout the previous year, or maybe there are just some issues that they need to resolve, and the onset of the holidays brings those issues to bear. Well, today in the studio we have with us Dr. Erica Strickland Parker of Behavioral Associates located in West Ashley, and she is going to talk to us and give us some ideas about how to avoid those winter doldrums. So thank you so much, Dr. Erica Parker, for being here with us today.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, yes, and welcome to Low Country Spotlight. Now, tell us a little bit about your practice, Behavioral Associates in West Ashley.
Well, it's a group practice, and we're all involved in mental health care. And we see individuals from adolescents up through geriatrics.
Wow, wow. And you know, so when you look at the news and you see so many things that are happening, whether it's things associated with the gun culture or violence and things of that nature, I have often heard people say that mental health is really at the root cause of this, but sometimes we don't connect the dots. Talk to us about, is it important to connect those dots, and is there a connection that can be made?
Yes, quite often mental health can be involved in cases, like you mentioned, related to gun violence and different criminal activities that we hear about, but it's not necessarily a cause and effect. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stigma that's still associated with mental health care. And so what we find is oftentimes people who need help are either never diagnosed or undertreated. And so, you know, my goal as a psychologist is to really work on educating the public and the community that we need to take care of our mental health just as importantly as we do our physical health. And
you know, we always hear about struggles in different communities in terms of getting, you know, physical care and going to the doctor and getting checkups. We had a young lady earlier talking about diabetes prevention and the fact that people just don't go to the doctor. So you seem to be saying it's very important, just as we should be concerned about our physical health, that our mental health is just as important.
Absolutely, absolutely, because if our brain and our emotions aren't operating optimally, then obviously that's going to affect all other aspects of human behavior.
What do you attribute, and this may be a crazy question, what do you attribute to the stigma associated with mental health diagnosis, treatment, and things of that nature?
Well, most people don't want to advertise on their t-shirts to say that I'm depressed or I'm schizophrenic or I'm bipolar. We're more inclined to say, well, I have diabetes or I have high blood pressure, those types of things. So I think sometimes just the label itself can be stigmatizing. And you know, what we try to do in terms of educating our patients specifically, because those are the ones that we have the most interaction with, is that, you know, a diagnosis just gives us a way to really frame the experiences or the symptoms that you're experiencing. And so that's just one piece of the puzzle, you know, because we really look at each individual person who's coming into us and do a global assessment of what is actually going on with them.
Are there any telltale signs? I mean, some people, again, with the stigma, you know, if someone is saying, oh my goodness, they're hearing voices, or someone is saying something that's so far-fetched, okay, yeah, you might be more apt to say, okay, maybe you need some type of mental diagnosis. But what if someone just says, you know, hey, you know, I'm sleeping all the time, I'm really tired, I don't feel like doing anything? Are those any triggers that we should be looking for?
Absolutely, yes. And somebody who's trained in mental health assessment can see that this person is probably leaning towards kind of the depression spectrum. Whereas if they were just sitting down with their girlfriend or husband or wife or something like that, they might not necessarily cue in that that behavior is really symptomatic of something going on with them. And so interestingly, what will happen is that that person will go ahead and go to their primary care physician and, you know, and they might get go in for those types of symptoms. And so oftentimes our primary care personnel are what we call our first responders. And so a lot of our primary care doctors are almost like ERs or mental health centers, because a lot of the patients that they're seeing are coming in with, quote, physical symptoms are really mental health related.
Wow, wow. What makes the holiday season, you know, when it's Christmas time or New Year's, what makes that such a detrimental time for people that maybe have had past mental health issues, or even people that have symptoms of issues that haven't been addressed yet?
Well, interestingly, our holiday period also coincides with the change of time.
Okay.
And so oftentimes what we see is that people who wouldn't even say have a mental health condition per se during the fall and winter months do report lower mood symptoms. So you have that in tandem with, you know, the Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all of the holiday period. And so we're moving into the winter months where there's less daylight, and that automatically affects people, the change of time.
Okay, stop right there. Are you? And I only thought I just needed to get home earlier so I wouldn't be, you know, caught in the dark. It never occurred to me that there is some connection with daylight hours or less daylight hours and how my mental health or my emotional health. Please explain that.
Well, what we see a lot of times is that people's mood is very different in those fall winter months, and that is a direct result of, you know, less daylight hours, so less exposure to sunlight, less vitamin D.
Okay. So that really does help. Vitamin D and sunlight, all of that really does help. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll let you continue. Okay. I'm just so excited.
So for people who are really beginning to exhibit more symptoms related to just that change of season, you might have heard of the diagnosis seasonal affective disorder.
Okay.
And so oftentimes kind of the treatment plan for that is more exposure to daylight. Some people will purchase light boxes, which are artificial lights that you can use at home, which give you that exposure to light, which often helps in terms with mood improvement. But in tandem with the, you know, seasonal changes, you know, the holiday period for a lot of people is a time that comes with added stress and pressure.
Getting those Christmas gifts, right? You know?
Yeah, getting the Christmas gifts, getting the Hanukkah gifts, or whatever it might be. And so then in addition to that, we're often interacting with family members that we might not interact with throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, those
so that can add added pressure with the in-laws and, you know, the other family members that we might not necessarily get along with that well. So.
This has been very insightful. Let me tell you what I've learned today. I've learned that, you know, daylight really does help. There is something to be said about vitamin D. And then the stress that comes from the holidays. This is awesome. Give us very quickly just a couple of tips. What can we do, again, with the change in the daylight hours and holidays? What can we do to avoid some of that stress or to get through this process pretty quickly?
Right. Okay. Well, first of all, I would say is understand that your mental health is a priority. So let's not ignore that.
Okay.
Let's focus on the things that generally work for you. So if you're exercising, keep that up.
Okay.
Good sleep habits are important, making sure we're getting our rest.
Okay.
Making sure that we're getting outside and getting that sunlight.
I'm going outside.
Absolutely. And just, you know, take time to exhale that, you know, you can shop, take your time. If you don't get everything done on your to-do list, that's okay too.
Don't shop till you drop.
Absolutely.
This has been fabulous. Okay, we've been talking to Dr. Erica Strickland-Parker with Behavioral Associates in West Ashley, and she is going to be a recurring guest on a Low Country Spotlight. She's going to come back and give us some other tips so we can maintain good mental and emotional health. Don't go anywhere. We will see you next week on Low Country Spotlight. Have a good week.